Welcome to the Talk with Clads podcast. Your host is Katie Ann, an island girl on a journey with her guests to learn about their backgrounds, businesses, passions, experiences, life lessons, and wins. Come and laugh, cheer, learn, and plan with us. My friend, take some time to come and talk with Clads.
Hello, world. Welcome to Talk with Clads. My name is Katie Ann, and I will be your host for today. We have a special guest in the house today. We have Mrs. Melanie Grant Moss, and she is with the non-for-profit Patients with Patients. So, Melanie, welcome.
Hello.
All right.
Nice being here. I'm so glad that I'm finally here.
Right. Thank you, Melanie. So tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your organization.
Patients with Patients of America is a nonprofit organization that I started. As she said, I'm Melanie Grant. And of course, I, you know, I honestly can tell you that I started a nonprofit for individuals who are dealing with sickle cell disease, um, not only sickle cell, but any real terminal chronic illness. And it's an advocacy program that we started. About 2016 is when we started the organization. And it was basically to focus on creating a space for advocacy for patients who don't have a voice. So basically, a voice for the voiceless. That's basically what we wanted to do. And what we internalized with the company when we found out what we wanted to do, we internalized the problem that we realized that so many people out there go to the doctor, go to the physician, they go to, a medical professional, and when they come home, they're not understanding 100% what the physician or what that medical professional has told them about their disease and their healthcare process. And so, what we do is we kind of not only help the patient understand, but also help that healthcare professional understand the individual needs and wants of a patient who has, whether it be lupus, whether it be sickle cell, whether it be, um, you know, multiple sclerosis. It just depends on what disease that person is battling and how we can assist them and advocate for them and really help that healthcare professional understand them better.
Okay. So I heard you mention sickle cell. It is something that is, I can speak about because it runs in my family. So can you discuss what sickle cell is?
Sickle cell disease, I actually have the disease. And it, like you said, it runs in your family, which I didn't even know that. It definitely runs in a minority based family. So a lot of people who, if you are a minority, if you are a Latino, African American, those are the families mostly. Sometimes I've also found it now, as we've gone through research, we found that even some Jewish people have been plagued by the disease as well. But it's mainly an African American descended disease.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is the cells in your body are shaped like icicles. So some are shaped around like normal, and the others are shaped, let's say, about, I would say, if I gave a percentage, I would say about 50% of the cells that you produce will be sickle shaped, which makes it harder for oxygen to be carried in those cells. So what ended up happening when you have, those sickled cells that are shaped differently, they end up clumping together in the vein, causing excruciating pain. And that is what, basically is the basis of the disease. Severe pain, what they call a crisis. The medical term, usually they use what's called a sickle cell crisis. And well, crisis is really when you're going through excruciating pain until you're either able to get fluids in your system or get what usually the treatment is of fluids or a blood transfusion, which they're entering, new cells in your body to kind of flush away those clumps of cells in the vein. So basically, with sickle cell disease, you have to get it from the parents. It can only be transferred from genotype to genotype.
Oh, so it's
So it's one out
inherited.
of four. Yes,
Okay.
it's an inherited disease. You must have two people that carry the trait in order for you to come out with it fully. So it's called, basically, they say one out of five.
Right. So I have
One
the
out of
trait. So if I had a child with someone that has the trait, then the possibility of my that child, then they could get sickle cell. Did I get that right?
That's correct. So you have a 50-50 chance once you have someone who does have the trait that every time you get pregnant, it's like flipping a coin. Every time you get pregnant, it's a 50-50 chance that that child will come out with sickle cell.
Yeah. Yeah. So my mom had the trait. I have the trait. One of my children have the trait. But two of my children don't have the trait.
Mm. And then that's also too the trait is is definitely something where you don't necessarily when you're a carrier of the trait, you don't necessarily will experience the pain and the painful crisis episodes, but what happens is you could have small symptoms that, if you're playing sports or if you're playing any activities outside, sometimes you could feel winded quicker than most. Sometimes if you go on high altitudes, you can get a little ache and pain, but nothing serious, nothing that needs medical attention that would lead you. Most of the time, people who are carriers of the trait don't need to go to the hospital when they, if they get sick or anything like that. Most of the time, they really never even are even symptomatic. So it just depends on that person. I've had people who I've known that have had the trait, played volleyball or played some type of sport in high school, and just realized that they needed to really keep hydrated or else they were going to have a situation where they could pass out. There is a famous football player. I'm not sure of his name, but this was in the 1980s, I believe, 80s or 90s. He passed out and actually passed away because of overexertion. And they found out that he did have sickle cell.
Sickle
He had the
cell.
trait. And yes, he wasn't a carrier of the full blown disease, but he had the trait. And that's why his overexertion was something that happened to him. And unfortunately, he didn't recognize that happened and he passed out while he was playing football.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, what are some risk factors, you know, when it comes on to the minority communication, people? Like, what are some complications from sickle cell?
So, well, for me, I have both of my parents have the trait. So my mom has the trait. My dad has the trait. So, and I'm their only child. So I came out with it 100%. Now, what happens is, even though I do have what's called sickle cell SS, they have SC, SS, different trait types. The complications that can come with that is sometimes you can get a stroke. Sometimes, as children get older, they develop, maybe lung issues. They can also develop what's called acute chest syndrome, which is basically they have a really bad pneumonia. A lot of people who have sickle cell get pneumonia really quickly
Mhm.
because there's not enough oxygen in the body to carry and support the lung function as well as support the functions of the heart. So some people have organ issues. People who are not SS carriers. So SS carriers is full blown. That means you have one of the most severe. Um, parts of the disease. That means your disease process, you probably have painful crisis very often. You show signs of symptoms very early in age as a child. Um, your crisis probably lasts very long. There's a lot of variables to having SS. But if you have SC, you may not have those painful crises, but you'll have maybe you need your spleen taken out because your spleen is giving you an issue. And, that's a complication. Maybe you have, men have priapism, which they have really lengthy erections that can cause really, really painful, long hours of being in an erected state.
Mm.
So they would have to get a transplant. Sometimes they have to get a transplant, or they have to go to the hospital and so that the doctor can give them something or an injection in their penis or in some way so that they can no longer have that erection. So that happens
So,
with men.
how does this happen during intercourse or it just?
No, it just happens. It's a crisis. So you get a crisis. Well, for men, I know a guy. He got, he had a crisis in his penis, and unfortunately, it's you just get a full blown erection for like 4 hours.
Oh Lord.
And yeah, and it's not, it's literally, an erection for longer than, an hour is danger zone, even if you're a healthy person. So, when that happens, it can really be painful. It can hurt. There's also a complication in babies. Sometimes babies can have swollen arms, swollen legs. They can have disformed, appendages, joints. Sometimes you have complications of like jaundice eyes. Maybe your eyes are yellow all the time. So there's a lot of different things that sickle cell presents itself within someone who has that disease.
Now, is there a cure for sickle cell?
Right now, there is not a I wouldn't call it a cure, but there is a treatment plan that leads to curing the disease in the body. So, and what I mean by that is that there's not a full blown cure that you can do something and then for an adult and it's over. So you can't take anything or do a procedure and it's over. Right now, they've come out with a lot of new procedures where they do what's called stem cell transplant, and they do it more so in children because the children, it's easier for children to rebuild their immune system back. So, like, think of if you had chemo, and if you had to get chemo, radiation, all of those things, so that somebody can implant their healthy red blood cells into your blood cells, into your body, so that now you will produce those healthy red blood cells. So if you have a good donor, you'd have to find somebody who is, a 99 to 100% match. They call it maybe 1 out of 10. So you score 1 out of 10. If you have a match that's a 10, that means that person has an exact genotype as you. And when you produce the healthy red blood cells, you'll start producing as if you were them. So I have an advocate now. She's a child advocate for patients with patients, and her mom was able to be her donor because she had a lot of complications with sickle cell SC, and she was going through, they had to put her through puberty. They had to not puberty, they had to put her through, she was like 16, 14, and they had to actually put her through menopause in order to shut down her system. They had to do a whole lot because she was having severe complications. She was bleeding uncontrollably. She was having dizzy spells. She wasn't able to function. She was having a lot of pain. She was in the hospital months and months and months on end. So what they were able to do, which they usually don't do, they like a donor outside, but they were able to find a miracle within her mom. So her mom donated her healthy red blood cells to reproduce within her daughter. So now her daughter has sickle cell trait. So she no longer has sickle cell disease, meaning she won't ever get sick. Now she produces and presents like a normal person without the disease at all.
Mm.
So every time she produces healthy red blood cells, they're really her mom's healthy blood cells that she's producing.
Oh, wow.
That has the trait, and that's a carrier. That means, like I said, they're not hospitalized. They don't have any pain crises. They don't have any real complications, and they live a normal life.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about patients with patients. And as you
Hmm.
said, you started it to create a place where um, anyone with a what was the term you used, disease, life, they have a safe space pretty much.
A safe space, right? Advocacy. Somebody who really understands the disease, has been through many adversities, complications, even a healthcare provider or a healthcare advocate, somebody who kind of can each one teach one. It's kind of like a each one teach one type of thing. I've been through it. I've gone through it. I've learned. I've overcome challenges. And here is how I can lend what I've learned to you and be your advocate and be your voice so that you can in turn do the same thing and pay it forward to someone else, you
Okay.
know? So basically, I'm helping you better manage your crisis because I'm living my life. I'm doing what I have to do. I go anywhere I need to go. I just get married. Things that are normal to everybody else on a normal day basis is 10 times difficult for someone who's living with sickle cell disease or any chronic illness.
Okay.
So, with that being said, you're able to find an avenue where you find someone who is living their life to their max potential or the max that they have found within themselves. And you're able to kind of foster that into encouragement for someone who is not so fortunate and is struggling and who doesn't really understand how to navigate through life, waking up every morning and possibly could be, in a painful crisis and have to go to the hospital or not. You just really don't know. That's the life of a sickle cell person or someone who has the disease. So, because of that, it can be discouraging. And having someone who can help you is what we foster at Patients with Patients. That's why it's called Have Patience
With
with Patients.
patients.
Hmm.
So, what are some long term and short term goals for patients with patients?
The best thing I can say is that we have in the inset, we've set a certain goal. We've had, a gala. We've raised funding. We've done the groundwork um, for the company. And our short term goal in the beginning was in 2016 and 17, when it started, was to really just get the word out and really build a community of people who understood their disease and was able to go back out and train others. And so that was our short-term goal, getting people boots on the ground, getting people in the hospitals, getting people to, stand up for each other, really talking to each other on, little things as small as I'm having a baby. I've never gone through, my having a pregnancy, um, and actually living with this disease that can cause, illness or it can cause me to be sick while I'm pregnant. What do I do? Well, I have had a baby and I know what to do and
Mm,
I can lend that. So those things, was our short term goal, really just getting the word out and getting people to really get out there. The long term goal at the time, and still is now, is really trying to reinvent the organization now that COVID has hit,
mm,
because COVID changed a lot for our company because our our base was hiring advocates to go into the hospital to be a liaison between the healthcare provider and the patient. That's what we did. That's what we did since 2017 to now. And because now the laws in the hospital changed, because of COVID, you couldn't just go into the hospital anymore.
Right.
You couldn't just go into healthcare centers anymore. You couldn't, even though my advocate is on my paperwork and on my medical information, and that's the person who I want to talk about my care. Um, it was difficult for that advocate to gain access to the hospital when it's infected with COVID or
Yeah.
when they have COVID patients on the floor, you know? So for us, it kind of halted our work in the sense where now we have to create a new trajectory on how we're going to still, we still have phone advocacy. You still can talk to people over the phone. You still can do Zoom calls and you know lend a hand over the phone. But as you know, even through a Zoom call, nothing helps someone like actually a person to person relationship.
Yeah.
And especially when you're going through something so, you know, um, so serious and so, so intricate when it comes on to somebody's health care, it's very hard for you to reach out and really understand and have that person understand you if they're not able to really see you and you're able not, to touch them and say, I understand what you're going through and I can help. So, with that being said, I have decided to create a space where long term we're going to now try to lend a hand in a way where we reach it through the provider. So the provider becomes the advocate as well.
Okay.
And
And
if
by
I can,
provider, what who do you mean? Like the
your
doctor?
doctor,
Okay.
Mhm. Your doctor will be your advocate. Your doctor's already your advocate as it is. But
Or should
how
be
do
your
we get
advocate.
should be right? But how do we get them to understand past what they've learned in the book, past what they've learned to do in school? And that's what we're trying to do, helping physicians. And when I say healthcare providers, I'm also talking about the nurses. I'm also talking about the medical assistants, everybody that touches that patient, even the people who are just the caregivers at home. Caregiver at home could be your mom.
Mm-hmm.
Caregiver at home could be your grandmother,
Or your
your auntie,
husband.
your
Yeah.
husband, right? So that's how we have to attack it. And I'm saying this here today on your podcast because as I think about it, that's the only way we're going to be able to really long term stay relevant. If we in turn create a program where we're teaching and training healthcare providers, professionals, and advocates in home in order to give them what they're supposed to get when they are in the hospital. Because who comes to see you when you're in the hospital now, even if you have COVID? Nobody's going to come to see you, but you'll have access to your family.
Okay. So do you find physicians very receptive to um what you're trying to do, or what patients is doing, like what your goal is? Or are you getting some pushback?
No, actually, that's a good question. I actually have gotten um, exceptional feedback. Physicians have wanted to know for years how to better assist and connect with their patients past the bedside, past when they leave the office. And they were dying to find out a way and they didn't understand how to. And so this was the way. And so I got so many physicians that loved the idea, that wanted to help, that did help. One of the physicians that we work with closely is our medical one of our medical team members. He is from University of Miami. He's a sickle cell adult physician. His name is Dr. Thomas Harrington, and he was very key and intricate when we started out getting the word out, because he was able to get us to a place where the the person who started the training and teaching and created the manual per se on treatment modalities of sickle cell disease was Dr. Graham Sargent in the University of Jamaica, the West Indies, University of West Indies in Jamaica. And so he connected our company with Dr. Sargent, and we were able to go down to Jamaica, meet with him. He created the model for the world, all over the world. In England, they all use the training system that he created in order to treat sickle cell today here in America and all over. So we were able to meet with him. He was able to come to our gala, speak, give his presentation, do University of Miami presentations. And the doctors were, there was about at least between Broward County, Miami-Dade County, as well as West Palm Beach County. We were able to get all of the physicians to come to our gala and hear him speak, and also get a one-on-one account of how they can do better with their practice, individually treating patients in our area.
CLAD's Resources and Consulting values its customers. Our planner Footsteps to My Vision is a 13-month planner that can be used for 5 years. It walks you through SMART goals, SWOT analysis, action planning, and holds you accountable through 3 monthly check-ins. We work only with top-quality materials, innovative designs, and verified suppliers, which are guaranteed to deliver to our high expectations, because when it comes to our customer satisfaction, there's no room for compromise. Made with high-quality PU leather and paper planner helps you focus on achieving your goals by giving you a sense of personal and professional satisfaction. Some of the amazing features of this product: Vision Board Planner, luxury pen, 8GB USB flash drive, wireless mouse, ultra elegant packaging box, available in 5 stunning colors: black, red, gold, pink, navy blue. Material: PU leather. 13-month planner. Elastic band for easy handling. Our Footsteps to My Vision is available at Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, our website, and at Walmart. You may also follow us at www.cladsresources.com, Instagram, Clads Resources, Facebook, www.facebook.com/cladsresources/.
You're listening to Talk with Clads. Find more resources online at cladsresources.com. Now back to the show with your host, Katie Ann.
So, how does your organization compare to other organizations like working pretty on the same cause? Like, how do you differentiate yourself?
That's a great question. So there's a multitude, what we call them in our community, we call them community-based organizations, right? And the community-based organizations are all over. There's a multitude in every city across the world, especially when you're facilitating a service. There's a multitude of people who do something or something similar or something in the same family. So for us, when I went to college and I studied marketing and I studied businesses and what set McDonald's aside from Burger King. They sell the same product.
Mm-hmm.
They have the same, things that they use, the same ingredients they use as far as their lettuce, tomato, and whatever, right? But what sets them aside from one or the other is their brand management and how they deliver their product, right, to the masses. So for me, I knew that as an advocate, I wanted to have a company that I was going to give something back, but I wanted it to actually tap into the client. Now, with that being said, what was going to set me aside from all the other advocacy programs? The fact that we were directly attacking the physician. We were attacking the physician in the sense of working with the physician to make something happen. There are other organizations, yes, that work with physicians, but how we were going to be different is that we were going to bridge the gap between the physician and the patient so that there is no, you're my doctor, I'm your patient. There has to be a relationship between the two so that they're both walking side by side dealing with this traumatic experience together. You're not just my physician, you write down some notes and you don't see me for 3 months. That's not how we wanted to build our relationship. And so that was what we were going to pride ourselves in expressing, how we were going to turnkey the advocacy program to where it tapped directly to the patient, and it wasn't just, oh, we're going to hand out, some care packages. Oh, we're going to give you some toothbrushes when you're not feeling well. Oh, we're going to give you a blanket. Nothing's wrong with that. We support all of those avenues. We support fundraising. We support all of those things, but we really wanted you to benefit from the relationship that we build with you so that you can become your own advocate. Because the whole premise, and that what was going to make my cheeseburger stand aside from everybody else's cheeseburger, is that one day that cheeseburger needs to be able to stand alone as a main course. And I wanted my patient to stand alone as a main course. I wanted that patient to be able to then turn around and become the teacher.
So how did you bridge the gap between the physicians and the patients?
So what is important to know about any relationship, whether you have a disease or not, finding the right person. Everybody has a person that is different from the rest, right? So when you are dealing with a chronic illness, your family physician is your family physician, she treats everybody in your family, and you have a close relationship. But when you're talking about dealing with a patient that has a specific disease that specifically only affects them in a different way than it affects everybody else who has that same disease, is exactly where we had to then try to pair the physician with the patient based on the personality trait of that patient and the personality trait of the physician. Meaning, if I am someone who has a doctor already, but my doctor's maybe not as attentive as Mary Lou's doctor, or maybe they're not as proficient in the knowledge. They only have maybe 3 sickle cell patients that they've treated before, versus another physician who has more sickle cell patients on their roster that they're more proficient in the disease. Then you kind of, what we do is we try to shift the right doctor with the right physician. Some people are comfortable with their physician and some people aren't. So what we do is just make sure that that patient is paired with the right doctor, with the right companion, with the person who really cares versus the person who comes to work. So that was how we were able to bridge the gap, by really trying to build a relationship based on each physician and each patient individually. So, a case in point for me would be, I have a patient who will say, they love their doctor, but they're missing these things. Okay, so we know that there's another doctor in the same area that does the same thing that your doctor does, but maybe they do it a little better. Or maybe they know a little bit more. We ask you to talk to your doctor and see if they have a relationship with all the other physicians in the area, so that your doctor can possibly work with someone who knows more. So your doctor more than likely will say, yeah, I've heard of that physician. He's really good. He does what I do, but, you can go ahead, and because some physicians, they really will not be upset if you're going to find the right person that's going to help you. And maybe sometimes they'll even work with them.
Mm-hmm.
My doctor works with My doctor in Miami works with my doctor here in Palm Beach. And if something is going on and, he's not sure, he'll say, hey, let's call him and see what does he think? Okay, and let's do this. Let's get this done together. So they will work together. It's just a matter of, making it happen.
Okay. So where does your support, because you mentioned earlier in the podcast that you've done a gala as a part of your short-term goal. Where does your support typically come from?
Financial support comes um, from the people who are, mostly people who have worked with us in the past, like centers that worked with us in the past, um, the physicians that worked with us in the past. We also raise money by, selling, like selling books of physicians who, like the physician I mentioned, Dr. Sargent, he wrote a book, and if he comes out with a new book, he lets us know. We can help him sell it. His proceeds are always donated back to us, and we help him out vice versa. If he needs something, a medical device or anything, we go send it to him in Jamaica. We also get funding by, if we have a small event, we will charge for tickets. We get funding by that. So fundraisers, small little events, and also a lot of contribution that we get come from people who just want to give. People say, hey, I have a family member who has the disease too, and this is a great cause. How much can I donate to your organization? And anywhere from $1 to $100 or more, it's up to you.
Okay. All right. And then how do people typically donate to you?
So right now, people can go on my website. We're actually restructuring the website now, but my website is once it's up and running again because it just came down. But we're actually working on restructuring it, and it's www.patientswithpatients.com. You also can go on Amazon. Patientswithpatients.org. But you can also go on Amazon, and if you are on Amazon and you have a membership with Amazon, you can actually go down and scroll down to smile.amazon.com. And all you have to do is pick, it'll ask you, what charity do you want to support? And you can put in patients, PATIENCE, with patients. It'll come up and you'll click on it, and 3% of whatever you purchase will go back to Patients with Patients. Also, other ways to give is through our PayPal. We have a running PayPal donation. You just type in Patients with Patients, it comes up. PWP of America, it comes up, and you can donate whatever you want.
Okay.
So that's how people go and donate to us.
Okay, so I think I have it. So they can go on your website at patientswithpatients.org, not .com. So just remember.
No, not .com, sorry, .org.
.org. They can go to Amazon, and it says it's
smile.amazon.com.
Okay.
And it's going to ask you what organization would you like to support, and you just type in Patients with Patients in Wellington, Florida.
Okay.
And it'll automatically, anytime you purchase from Amazon, it'll automatically go to Patients with Patients.
Okay. And then also on PayPal.
And then you can go on PayPal and type in the same information, and you can also send us that Cash App. People donate through Cash App as well. PWP of America is the Cash App, and that's it.
Okay. All right. So what if someone can't donate financially? Is there another way they can help?
Sure. So some people can't donate financially, but they can lend their time. They can lend, if they'd like to be an advocate, they can take our course. We have a advocacy course. They would just email patientswithpatients@gmail.com, and we will go through and sign them up for the class. It's given by a certified registered nurse with the state of Florida, and it's an advocacy program course that you go through. literally is a 48-hour course. You take the exam, and if you pass, then you can start giving phone support immediately.
Okay. And so what does the advocacy course teaches?
So it will teach you the skills that you need in order to lend emotional support to a patient. Um, Basically, support when it comes on to healthcare support, meaning sometimes people don't understand the healthcare system. So it's going to teach you the healthcare system as far as the chain of command in the hospital. So when you're lending support to someone who may be having an issue within the hospital, or they're in the hospital and the doctor or the nurse is not really listening to what they're saying, you can you will learn the chain of command of who you can instruct that patient to talk to get more assistance and get help in the hospital. So we teach you chain of command. We teach you who to find a hospital liaison. We also will teach you how to give and lend the communication skills that you need when you're talking to a patient that's going through a traumatic issue. They could be in crisis and you have to talk them down. So we teach you those skills to talk someone down when they are at a high intense level of pain. All of those things are the things that the nurse teaches you.
Yeah. And those are, I'm sure, if I'm someone that's going through that, and I have someone that is, at times you can't advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have
Some people
someone,
don't know, little things like, oh, I just, case in point, I have a family member that had a baby. The baby has the disease, and the mom is not really proficient on what to do. So she's listening to whatever the doctor says. And they go to the hospital. The hospital tries to give them morphine. Now, the emergency hospital is giving morphine. That's all they know to give. But that kid is not even 3 years old yet.
mm,
So those are things that our nurse will teach you how to maybe ask, your ER doctor for other options. Say, hey, I'm really not comfortable with giving my 2-year old morphine just yet. Is there other things? What about Toradol? What about those are things maybe you don't even know what Toradol is. You don't know
yeah,
what, certain medications are. So the nurse will basically be able to help you with that. And those are the things that you learn and if you don't know and you're in that situation, you also have access, 24-hour access to our nurse that will basically, help you talk somebody off the ledge if they're in a problem where they're panicking, their child is sick and they need help.
yeah. So Melanie, what's one thing that you wish that you'd known before starting patients with patients?
One thing I wish I knew before starting PWP would be I wish someone told me that a 501c3, any organization, but a 501c3 specifically, even though you have a team, your executive director will always be the the beginning and the end of the organization for the first couple years going into it.
Mm,
Without the executive director, nothing will happen without the executive director. So you could have a board of people, you can hire a staff of 15, doesn't matter. Without the executive director manning the ship won't sail.
okay. You need someone to man the ship, right?
Man the ship. I wish that somebody told me that, because then I would have at least been able to be prepared to know that part.
Oh, well,
But
yeah.
I came into it thinking, oh, I got a board. And I got a board of people who are like 50 and 60 years old. They're older people. So they will always get things done. No, no, no. You
Listen.
still have to have that executive director to man the ship.
Okay.
Hmm.
And sometimes age doesn't mean that things will get done.
And right, I tell you, somebody should have told me. I wish, because I'm thinking, oh, because they're older, older people, then they're responsible. They know, and not that they're not, and not that they're not attentive, but it's just that you don't know, and it's with every organization. The board is there to guide, but you still need the ship to run, and with every organization, down to whether it's for healthcare or not. That is the main focus on a 501c3. That my nonprofit, and I had a nonprofit consultant, which he's really exceptional. He still works with me till this day. But he definitely said, "Hey, the executive director is it. Like, that's the guy. Okay, that's the guy, no matter what."
Yeah, yeah. You need a team, and I think you also need a good grant writer. I worked in another.
Oh God, if they would have told me that too.
Listen, I know
If
someone
they
that's a
would have
really good
told
grant
me that,
writer. So
honey, you
they
speak
they
in
they
law.
they know how to write to
Honey, once you
really.
have a good grant writer, you're gone clear. And I found one, but the only thing is that, I found a good grant writer who used to write grants for huge, 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 huge companies. However, she retired um, in her own, sector of work. And, once again, even though she's retired, it's something where her time is now spent with a lot with her grandchildren, and the
Mm,
grandchildren have schools. So it's like, you have to be her availability was limited. So, but she's if I had to choose, she would be the best one. But unfortunately, just the timing for her wasn't. So what I realized is I have to be able to teach myself to how to write grants.
mm-hmm.
So that's a whole nother thing.
It sure is. It's an art.
It's an art in itself,
It
honey.
really is an art in itself.
Hmm.
So, you said what are some lessons apart from the you need the board. What are some lessons that you've learned along the way while pursuing this journey?
I've learned that patience is everything, and don't be eager for anything. Um, what's for you is for you,
Mm,
and no matter what happens, no matter if it's a year, 2 years, if because when you go in, you have all these goals and you have all these things that you want to do, and you have all. But when you're assigned, this didn't come to me just like this. Starting a nonprofit wasn't like, oh, today I'm going to start a nonprofit. No, I was put on an assignment by God. And when you're assigned to do something by God, um, no matter what happens, even if you put it down tomorrow, it will always still be your assignment to pick up again. So it's something where I've learned that what's for you is for you, and your assignment is never over until God says so.
and that you know what and I think patience,
Patience is
patience,
so difficult, girl.
patience, patience, right?
Patience,
Patience.
patience.
Patience is really a good name, right? Patience.
Mm-hmm.
So patience with patience.
Patience, because remember now, in life, we all try to control every aspect of our own lives.
Right? That is
And
true.
no matter what, we know that we're not the captain of the ship. We know that God is the captain of the ship.
Well,
But for some reason, we still choose to think that we are the drivers, and we're not. All we're doing is facilitating the vehicle to get the car where it needs to go. But at the end of the day, God is driving and He's in control. And I don't know, everybody else's, what people think as far as religion. But I know for me, I know that life just doesn't happen. And through Sickle Cell, it has allowed me to know that there is a higher power. Because for me, I could have died a long time ago. I could have had a lot of complications that could have caused my death when I was younger. that I know that I've pulled through, and I didn't pull through by myself. I know that something, somewhere God was in control of that. So, with that being said, even though as humans we try to control everything, at the end of the day, patience, if you don't have patience, no matter what you do, you'll be trying to kill yourself to try to get certain things done, then it's not time. So, patience is really, really key.
Yeah, patience is definitely key. Patience with patience, right?
Yep. Yep.
They say
Patience.
sometimes man a plan God a
Patience with
wipe.
patience. Right? You have plans,
Yep.
but they're not your plans to plan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes you do need to plan.
Your
But
plan, of
yeah,
course, you plan. But
from
when
the
I say they're
person who
not
has a
your plans
planner.
to plan, they're not your plan. You heard, I didn't stutter. Okay, they're your plan, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not your plan to plan. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because if you think about it, the plan is well set out, and you're planning something. But the plan came into your head from somewhere else, and
Yeah.
you didn't think of that, so it's not your plan to plan. Hello.
Mm,
Okay,
yeah. Oh,
just a little word.
just a little gem. I'm just dropping a
Just
little
a little
gem.
word.
Just a little gem. Right.
Just a
Right.
little jewel.
Well, is there any questions that you would have liked for me to have asked you that I have not asked you so far in the podcast?
Okay, I can tell you this. I've been interviewed multiple times. I've been on a Believe in Yourself podcast before. I've been in podcasts that have been conducted overseas. I mean, literally, you know, um, different avenues of media. However, I can tell you, and I'm not even exaggerating, your podcast was able to get me to a place where you asked every question that I could say, even if I've been asked them before, it wasn't as proficient as your questions. So I don't even think that there's nothing that you did not cover. You you covered everything
Well, thank
front
you.
to back.
But I can think of one more.
I'm sure you
You know
I'm
what?
sure you
Because
can.
I grew up, and as I said, I have the trait. My family members have the trait. I've actually had a cousin who died at the age of
Me too.
2,
Oh
and
wow, mine
from
was 23.
yeah, from pneumonia from sickle cell, right?
I
And
told you it's a
it
complication,
is a
right?
complication, and I
hmm
have another cousin that has the pain episodes, and she has to be in the hospital and goes through all that.
hmm
And is there, because it's an inherited illness, is there an age group that they say, okay, if you live beyond this age with sickle cell, it's not normal?
Um, Once upon a time, I would have I would have said yes, but in our current day and age in 2021, um, there have been people to defy that uh, that that odd, right? So I would have said if we were in 19, well, if we were still in the 90s, even in the early 2000s, I would have said, oh, there's an age, there's an age, and it stops at this, because
Right.
there is an age, and it does there is an age, right? There is an age based on the fact that that's what science told people, or told people to create that age and put that in the universe for the physicians to follow, and for the masses to follow. But what ended up happening is, when we got to 2010, 2011, 12, and beyond, and now to 2022 coming up, we have seen that patients have lived all the way to, I believe the oldest lady was 85 years old, living with sickle cell disease in Africa. So, and I believe she was from Ghana.
Okay.
And so, if I'm almost mistaken, let me see if I can, as I'm talking to you, get her information. But she passed away um, at the age of, I believe it was 85. So there is no longer a limit to what age you can live with sickle cell. Now, before they used to say 45.
Okay.
You usually they don't pass 45, 42. Sometimes they'd say 43, but people pass that. I personally know somebody who was 65. You know, my aunt had a friend, and her friend had it, and she lived to 60 something. So, T-Boz has it. Of course, T-Boz is a young girl, but her family members have lived past 50. So I no longer would say that there is a limit. I would no longer even want to
So you,
create the thought.
yeah. So you're saying that that what, because medicine hadn't evolved then there was a life expectancy, but now you can live longer than what the average life expectancy is said to be previously.
Exactly. And fortunately, her name is Asanta uh, Oniki, if I'm saying it right. She was the oldest sickle cell warrior, and she died at 84 from Nigeria. Now, what ended up happening is sorry, they made a correction. It said 84. A publication put 84 out. Navarro, which is a drug company in Nigeria, put out that she was 84. And I posted it, and somebody came into the comments and said, "Hey, they used to call her Mama Asante." So they said, Mama Asante, she actually was older than that. She was 94. She died at 94. So that was a correction that the publication had to make. And so as I'm looking at it now, as I'm talking to you, it said that the correction that was made is that she died at 94. And she was the oldest living woman with sickle cell disease, SS full blown.
Okay. All right. So you said you put it on, and someone put it in your comment. So how do you use social media um, to have people learn more about patients with patients?
So, what's important is social media platforms that there's a lot of sickle cell platforms. And what the sickle cell community at large tries to do is they try to keep together by creating groups, creating, social media forums. And so, what we do in order for us to stay a relevant, head of the cuff, and be a part of it is we created our own forum, and we have a Patients with Patients Facebook where we tag anything we put up, or any event we have. We actually tag those specific sickle cell companies and those groups online, and we all basically share our information. So what I do is I try to post on Instagram. I really haven't been posting recently. I try to post if there's anything relevant. I don't like to be one of those companies that just post just for posting's sake,
Mm.
because um, people just post just to get the views and the likes. But for us, it's not about that. It's more about getting people to understand that something is going on in their community, or there's something happening. So usually, if there's not anything happening, if there's no event, we won't really post unless we're trying to disseminate certain information. So, and we also like to also only do accurate information. So we don't like to disseminate anything that's inaccurate. So we'll make sure that we vet out information. But yes, Instagram, or on Twitter, we're on Facebook. On Instagram, we are Patients with Patients is our handle on Instagram. On Twitter, our handle is PWP of America. And on Facebook, our handle is Patients with patients of America. So it's the patients, have patience with the patients. Our motto is the same thing: have patience with patients.
Okay. All
Yes.
right.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, if again, patience with patience is it's not very hard to
Not very
remember.
hard, very easy.
Just remember patience, patience, have patience, have some patience, you know. So
Yep. And we have a volunteer application. If people want to apply to be a volunteer, they can go to the Facebook. They can click on the, apply to be a volunteer. It'll automatically email us, and then we'll be able to sign people up to, volunteer to our program. Either they can do anything from, helping us with our design, our branding, our social media, everything. They can also help by helping an actual patient. So it just really depends on what volunteer options we have at the moment. It's Christmas time coming up, so we're going to work on our Amazon handles right now.
okay. And do you have any events that are up that are coming up?
Right now, we have a podcast because we get not a podcast, but I have what's called we call it what's talk let's talk about it TV. It's not considered a podcast, but it's more of a live that we do. We do an Instagram live every so often. So the next live is going to be right before Christmas. It will be around the 23rd. I think I'm going to do it on the 23rd. It'll be actually posted once the date is solidified. It'll be posted on the Instagram, on the social media sites, as well as on the website. We're going to do the interview with the patient advocate that we have, Hannah. Her name is Hannah Delaware, and she's overcome having and dealing and battling with sickle cell disease. So we're going to do a little interview on her on our Let's Talk About It TV, and really talk about what she went through, because it was very traumatic, very crazy. And then when imagine having sickle cell and then not having it anymore. What do
Oh,
you do then?
yeah.
You've lived your life like not going in somewhere that's too cold, not going in the pool because you can't. Like as a kid, you couldn't do certain things, and now all of a sudden, you don't have any restrictions. Imagine that. Your mind is like, okay, so now what do I do? So we we
Jump in a
we
pool.
kind of want to really pick her brain and see how she's doing.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
I mean, I will definitely hop on and view it. I think that's a
Please do.
great podcast or live TV. Whatever you do,
Hmm.
I'll
Yep.
definitely support.
Yep. Let's talk about it. TV live. Hmm.
Let's talk about it TV live. Well, it's at the come the time where it's at the end of the podcast. I'm
Yes, darling.
excited that you came on and discussed patience with patients and also
Thank you.
your journey with sickle cell because I don't really hear a lot about it and it exists. It exists in the minority
It's
community.
there, and that's the problem too. It's very difficult how you never, ever, ever hear much about it, but it's there. It does exist, and people are, dealing with it. People are every day they are dealing with this disease, and it's so hard because nobody's talking.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking. Everybody's silently dealing with their own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true.
Hmm.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you to everyone that's listening and learning. And hopefully, they go on your page, they donate, or if they want to
Yes, please
volunteer,
do.
they volunteer. It's a absolutely great cause. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Melanie, for taking some time
Thank you
to
so much
talk
for
with
having us.
class.
We thank you so much for the opportunity. We loved it. And I really actually loved just at least having the moment to talk to you, because at least the more we spread the word about this disease and all the chronic illness diseases that people go through, it's just each one teach one. If you have one that knows, then somebody else will say, hey, you know what, I know too. And so that's all we need, just to be aware.
Just to be aware. So I'm going to end it with the each one teach one. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye, guys.